Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating and honestly super relatable organizational mystery. We're looking at why companies can go through these massive, exhausting transformations over and over, yet somehow they just get harder to change over time. It's this hidden headache that almost every business carries, and today we're finally shining a light on it.
Seriously, just think about your own workplace for a minute. Have you ever noticed how a huge change program will officially close out? The consultants pack up, the shiny new org chart gets published, everyone pats themselves on the back, and yet all those temporary workarounds just stick around? The old spreadsheet named version 8, final, actually final, is still stubbornly being updated every Friday. Or that temporary steering committee that somehow achieved immortality? It begs the question, why do we finish changing but never seem to actually complete the change?
To demystify this whole thing, we're going to logically walk through the myth of finished change, define exactly what transformation debt is, explore its three states, look at the balance sheet, calculate the hidden interest we're all paying, and finally, figure out how to actually manage it. Let's dive right in. Okay, part one, the myth of finished change. Let's kick things off by looking at this illusion of a clean slate and the absolute myth that corporate change ever truly finishes on schedule. See, there's this massive, completely hidden gap here. You've got the formal operating model, which is the pristine, perfect setup that looks amazing on paper and got executive sign-off. But then there's the lived operating model, reality. This is where your employees are stuck trying to reconcile overlapping systems because, oops, the new software can't generate that one critical report. So what do? They enter the data twice. And look, change doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? The business has to keep running. So temporary compromises are totally normal. The real danger isn't making the compromise. It's when that temporary fix silently morphs into a permanent part of how you run your company. Which brings us to part two, defining transformation debt. This is the underlying disease causing all these everyday frustrations. Author Chris Parsons coined a brilliant term for this. He calls it transformation debt. It is the unresolved consequence of organizational change that either imposes a continuing cost or, frankly, just torpedoes your capacity to change in the future. So the big takeaway here is that transformation debt happens when a totally understandable Band-Aid fix loses its temporary status. Nobody ever actually sits down and says, hey, let's keep this clunky, annoying workaround forever. It just kind of happens. And before you know it, your brand new transformation is being built right on top of the unfinished residue of the last three initiatives. Think of it exactly like a financial loan. It's got two parts. The unresolved change itself is your principal. Those are the parallel systems, the overlapping team responsibilities, the capabilities you promised to build but never quite finished. But the real killer? The interest. This is the invisible, ongoing tax you are paying every single day. It's the duplicated effort. It's the management bottlenecks caused by messy reporting lines. It's that terrifying reliance on the one guy in IT who is literally the only person on earth who knows how the old and new systems talk to each other. You are paying interest in the form of your employees' time and your company's agility. Moving on to part three, the three states of debt. If we want to understand how this gets so out of hand, we need to track how it evolves over time. Believe it or not, debt actually starts out relatively safe when it's intentional. You know it's there, somebody owns it, and there's a clear plan to fix it later. Simple enough. Then things get a bit messy with accidental debt. This sneaks in without anyone realizing it's actually a liability. But the absolute danger zone, the red alert, is orphaned debt. This is when an organization hangs on to a weird process or a bizarre workaround, but has completely forgotten why it was created in the first place. The person who set it up left the company 3 years ago, and now everyone is just terrified to unplug it. So, part four, the debt balance sheet. How exactly do we track this hidden liability? Parsons introduces a really clever way to map out the baggage an organization is carrying. He breaks this corporate residue down into 7 distinct, interacting categories. Now, we won't deep dive into all 7 right now, but just look at where unresolved change likes to hide. You've got structural debt, where reporting lines are just a total mess. Process debt, full of pointless handoffs. Technology debt, which we all know and love. Hello, fragile legacy systems. There's governance debt, where temporary approval boards somehow become permanent fixtures. And capability debt, which happens when you relied so heavily on outside consultants that your internal team never actually learned how to run the new operation. But honestly, 2 of the most insidious forms of debt on this list are purely psychological. First up is cultural debt. Look, when previous leadership promises to simplify things but instead just delivers more chaos, your employees learn to distrust the next big announcement. That skepticism isn't just people having a bad attitude, it is deep organizational memory. And then there's narrative debt. This one blows my mind. It's when the organization firmly retains the answer but completely forgets the question. You keep running this massively complicated compliance check simply because everyone assumes it has to serve some forgotten, highly critical purpose.
Which brings us to part 5, paying the hidden interest. So, what happens when a company just ignores all of this and keeps paying the toll year after year? Let's look at the hard numbers.
The UK government's 2025 State of Digital Government Review paints a pretty incredible real-world picture of this. They discovered that a whopping 28% of central government technology was officially classified as legacy. Just think about that. Over a quarter of their entire tech stack is just sitting there, demanding manual workarounds, needing highly specialized maintenance, and acting as a massive heavy anchor, dragging down any chance of a new initiative.
But here is the truly staggering financial toll of dragging that anchor around. Because of all this compounding tech debt, some major organizations in that review were spending between 70 to 85% of their IT budgets strictly on upkeep. Let that sink in for a second. Up to 85 cents of every single IT dollar is just going toward keeping the lights on and babysitting old workarounds. That leaves barely anything for actual innovation or moving the needle forward. The past is quite literally eating their future. And that brings us to a really powerful quote from Parsons. Transformation debt matters because yesterday's decisions increasingly determine what tomorrow's organization can feasibly become. The real tragedy of this debt isn't just the wasted cash, it's the lost optionality. Your organization literally becomes a prisoner of its own history. Want to make a simple process update? Too bad. It's now a multi-year ordeal because it's completely tangled in a web of historical compromises.
Okay, part 6, managing the debt. It's not all doom and gloom, I promise. There is a way out of this trap, but it requires a pretty big shift in how leaders think. In the corporate world, we are totally obsessed with adding things during a transformation. More tools, more processes, more layers. Well, we need to become equally obsessed with disciplined subtraction. Calling a transformation complete absolutely must include explicit, ruthless decisions about what to switch off, what to retire, and what to genuinely end. We have to balance our portfolios. Before you fund the next shiny, exciting initiative, you need to deliberately sit down and decide which legacy systems you are going to kill and which duplicated responsibilities are finally going to stop. So, to help you achieve what we might call transformation solvency, here is a strict 5-step discipline you should bake directly into your change management process. Step 1, identify the function. Like, what is this ancient workaround actually doing? Step 2, make the interest visible. Calculate the actual time and money it's bleeding from the company. Step 3, map the dependencies. Who exactly relies on this thing? Step 4, decide deliberately. Are we retiring it, redesigning it, or consciously keeping it? And finally, step 5, assign ownership. Every single piece of carried over debt needs a named owner and a firm review date so it never, ever becomes an orphan. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with one final provocative thought. When you go back to work tomorrow and look around at the double data entries, those ancient legacy spreadsheets, and the steering committees that just won't end, ask yourself, what hidden interest is your organization quietly paying today? And honestly, more importantly, how are you going to resolve those inherited liabilities when your company no longer even remembers why they were created in the first place? It's probably time to audit your transformation debt. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep asking the tough questions.